is Liz Juarez, and I am a graduate student at Arizona State University studying communication. For my proposed research study and as part of my capstone project, I wanted to research how emerging technologies such as computer-mediated communication, often known as CMC, affects human interactions. In 2015, the average American spent about 5.6 hours a day using digital media, such as computers, tablets, and smartphones, which is an increase of almost 3 hours daily since 2008. Which brings us to the purpose of this research project. The question is, are electronic devices having a negative effect on human interconnectivity? My literature review focuses on studies that have observed and surveyed interactions between young adolescents, but also within adults, individuals in romantic partnerships, among families, and even around the world. These studies have proven that they have found a negative effect in the increased use of CMC. Focusing on the interactions that individuals experience through electronic communication and FTF interactions, we can get a more rounded perspective on the differing experiences as well as positive and negative effects that emerging technologies have on human FTF interactions. In one of the studies, it shows that age plays a huge factor on whether CMC affects different age groups. Individuals from different age generations experience communication technologies differently. For example, in families and in older adults, research has shown that mobile phone use can be seen as inappropriate in FTF interactions as a result of a social phenomenon referred to as fibbing or phubbing. The act of phubbing or glancing at a phone during a face-to-face interaction can be offensive and disruptive to older adults that can cause lower levels of life satisfaction and disrupt family time. In order to conduct this study and be the most effective, quantitative research seemed to be the best option. Moving on to the methods section that were used to conduct my own study, again, I stated that an electronic survey was the best method to use in order to get a good amount of answers. 63 respondents participated in the survey by clicking on a link that was published on social media, applications like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, as well as through text. Before the start of the survey, there is an excerpt that explains the purpose of the survey and assures everyone the answers are anonymous, and gives some examples of the wording that might be used in the survey. For example, I gave a definition of what CMC is referring to, as well as what consists of FTF interactions. Participants of the survey consisted of 35 females and 28 males. They also varied in age group from Generation Z to Millennials to Generation X and Baby Boomers. The predominant majority of respondents were Millennials, following with Generation Z. I only got maybe about 1 or 2 respondents that were part of Generation X, and I got about 4 respondents who were part of the Baby Boomer generation. The survey also went on to ask for the participants' ethnicity and found that most were Latino Hispanic, 78.5% exactly, which is not a surprise since the survey was geared towards individuals living in the Central Valley of California, where the majority are Latino Hispanic. Participants were also asked who they share a home with or if they live alone. They were also asked about their occupations, whether working or not working, full-time or part-time. During this pandemic, I think it was crucial to know that. A lot of participants are either living or by themselves or in cramped quarters right now due to COVID-19, which means some of them are spending a lot of time alone, and a lot of them are spending a lot of time interacting face-to-face with their friends or family members, roommates, partners, etc. The questions in this survey were made to be modeled into a very likely or unlikely 5-point scale questionnaire. They were asked about their moods when communicating through CMC and through FTF, whether they were experiencing positive or negative effects. First portion of questions shows that 65.1% are very likely to interact through CMC and 46.8% are likely to interact with someone face-to-face. Also didn't show much of the negative or positive effects of either mediums, although 52.4% did say that their mood would be positively affected by communicating through CMC, which kind of goes against our hypothesis. The next two questions focused on the preferred likelier method, which shows that 47.6% are somewhat likely to prefer communicating through face-to-face interactions, while only 34.9% said they would be somewhat likely to want to interact through CMC. The results get even more interesting when only 12.7% said they were very likely to prefer communicating through CMC, while 34.9% are very likely to prefer communicating face-to-face. Results for the survey also show that although there was no clear negative effect by interacting through CMC, it did show that a vast majority did prefer communicating face-to-face. Factors altered the results of the study that might not be conclusive with other studies. One of those notable factors could be the COVID-19 global pandemic. To end, I'm going to answer some questions that were issued to me by our professor and my mentor. My professor's name is Kristen and my mentor's name is Carlos. Let's start with what my professor asked me. She asked me to go over my results, which I did. Then she also asked me how did the pandemic change my research plans and what would I have done differently. I would have, if this pandemic wasn't going on, I think I would have done half online survey links and then half paper surveys so that I could have gotten to those older adults that I just didn't have the time to get. I also only left the survey active for a week, and during that week I was able to get those 63 participants, but if I would have left that link longer, then maybe I would have gotten more participants. And also it was not necessarily the pandemic, but just overall taking care of my family members who fell ill during this pandemic, and also working full-time kind of shortened my time that I wanted to spend having this link open. She asked me if I considered using pre-existing measures with existing questions like the ethnicity and the age and the gender, those kind of things that are often seen in other surveys. And now I'm going to answer the questions that were asked by my mentor Carlos, and he asks, where do you see this taking you in your next step of research? I wasn't planning on conducting any more research after this because I'm done with my graduate studies and I don't know that I would go on to pursue above that or beyond that. But if I had the free time, then I think I would want to see this out to the end of the pandemic to see how people's communication styles changed after this, because we're still kind of in it, and it would be interesting to see the end result of people's communication styles after the pandemic is over. Second question and last question. He asks, what is the public significance of communication technology use across multiple generations? For example, baby boomers, millennials, Generation X, and Generation Z. I think that is a really good question. Different generations are significant because they all have different opinions on technology. As we saw in the literature review, you know, older adults are more likely to be offended if you're texting or emailing during face-to-face when they're trying to have a conversation with you. And the same goes with, you know, baby boomers, but then Generation Z and millennials are very often used to eating while texting, answering emails from work, or answering their friend. We're really used to being able to interact online and not make a big deal out of it, but older generations feel a little offended. So I think that's the significance that is really important. Every generation is going to look at technology differently and is also going to communicate through technology differently. Thank you.